No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live episode number 121. Make sure you subscribe to this brand new independent news source. Turn on the notification bell. Breaking right now, could Donald Trump implement a travel ban on London Mayor Sadiq Khan because of his previous links to extremists? That's the audacious plan that I've heard is being considered by some Trump aides. And it's hardly surprising after these sort of attacks on the US president-elect.
It wasn't this colour skin. If I wasn't practicing Muslim, he wouldn't have come for me. He wasn't coming for me because I'm 5'6", right? He's come for me because of, let's be frank, my ethnicity and my religion's fact that I was speaking out against somebody whose policies were sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, racist, wasn't because I wanted to come to his attention, because I have a responsibility to speak out if I think something's affecting not just Londoners, but affecting all of us.
So I reveal what I know about this extraordinary story in my digest next. And a bloodbath at GB News. With Mark Dolan and Isabel Webster sacked, Jacob Rees-Mogg slashed just as they start their Christmas holidays. But does it serve some of them right after they failed to stand up for free speech? Well, today, two of my absolute favourites, Christine and Neil Hamilton, are here for the entire show. Oh, she looks Christmassy too. Love that. She is my Christmas pudding. Also, coming up on the show today, the left-wing panic to try and stop Elon Musk bankrolling Nigel Farage into number 10 grows ever more hysterical. And should the BBC be forced to play the shock contender for the Christmas #1, I love this, Freezing this Christmas by Starmer and the Grammy Harmers. I think I'm going to download it actually after the show. Then in the Uncancelled After Show today, Lady Colin Campbell on bombshell new reports on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's new arrangement, Prince Andrew in exile, and why William and Catherine missed today's Christmas lunch. And the Uncancelled After Show now broadcast exclusively daily and on demand on Substack. You can Google it or get to it right now by visiting www.outspoken.live. If you subscribe to a monthly paid membership, then you get access to the after show, all my exclusive reporting and columns, access to our live chats on the Substack app, and the chance to join what is a thriving community. The great thing about Substack, by the way, it is a safe space, free of censorship, so there's no cancellation going on there. Totally fine, by the way, to subscribe for free. That option is available to you as well. And it is so, so important that we start building this independent media revolution. So please do so. www.outspoken.live. But now, let's go. The Mayor of London sure has a funny way of representing what he describes as the diversity of the city, which he has single-handedly destroyed. So last night, the soon-to-be, and I still struggle with this, Sir Sadiq Khan, posted on Instagram, "Here in London, we respect, celebrate, and embrace our diversity." Really? Because for a couple of years at least, London remains a majority white city. And actually, if we just go and have a look at that picture again, it's funny. Because I don't know about you, but I can't actually see one awful whitey there. Oh, okay, in the very corner. In the very corner. I think you can just see a forehead hidden. So we know that everything Khan does is about race baiting and trying to make the native population of London feel so uncomfortable and unsafe in their home that they just have to flee. But he's also prepared to cause serious damage to the country when it comes to geopolitics, especially regarding the man he hates more than anyone else in the world, Donald Trump. And he doesn't stop throwing around despicable false allegations of racism either.
It wasn't this colour skin. If I wasn't practicing Muslim, he wouldn't have come for me. He wasn't coming for me because I'm 5'6", right? He's come for me because of, let's be frank, my ethnicity and my religion's fact that I was speaking out against somebody whose policies were sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, racist, wasn't because I wanted to come to his attention, because I have a responsibility to speak out if I think something's affecting not just Londoners, but affecting all of us.
Oh, yeah, right, mate. How do you explain Vivek Ramaswamy just being given one of the most important jobs in the administration? He doesn't hate you because of your skin colour. He hates you because of your false claims, constant attempts to divide, and critically, your previous support of extremists.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Namahu wa salli ala Rasulil Kareem. Brothers, sisters, respected elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to begin by saying congratulations to... As British Muslims, we are a vital part of Britain.
So today, I can reveal an audacious plan being discussed in Trump world, which has the support of many top British MAGA fans. Use Khan's past behaviour, including his links to the likes of Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam when he was a human rights lawyer, to slap him with a US travel ban. Now, you might remember that ironically, Khan was attempting to overturn a ban on Farrakhan entering the UK. Remember, this is the man who has called white people devils, Jewish folk bloodsuckers, and described Hitler as a very great man. But at the time, Khan insisted Farrakhan was a leader who wasn't anti-Semitic and didn't preach racial hatred or antagonism. He also campaigned to stop the extradition to the US of Baba Ahmad, who later pleaded guilty to terrorist offences. So a travel ban of Khan to the US would not only be bold and headline-grabbing, it would be bloody hilarious to shame the man who seems to spend his entire mayoralty trying to shame Trump. But now, the Uncancelled Interview. Oh, two of my absolute favourites are here. The wonderful Neil Hamilton, former minister, former leader of UKIP, legal expert, entertainment superstar. I don't know, Neil, is there anything else? Anything else?
Well, I've still got room for development, I think, before I go into the grave, so who knows?
You do, you absolutely do. And there she is, my little Christmas pudding, the wonderful Brit battle axe, Christine Hamilton.
Dan, I will assume that you're calling me a Christmas pudding because of my puddings on my jumper, and not for any other reason.
No, but you are delicious, Christine. You are absolutely delicious. But look, Sadiq Khan, this is a good idea, isn't it, Neil?
Well, of course, I would have a great deal of sympathy with Donald Trump if he wanted to impose a travel ban on Sadiq Khan. But of course, the corollary of that is that we're going to be stuck with him here when he could be on the other side of the Atlantic making a nuisance of himself in America. And the other side of this coin is that we might find that Donald Trump's going to send Prince Harry back as a kind of Christmas present to us for 2025. He filled in his immigration details incorrectly, but who knows? I mean, Khan is a mediocre little jerk, and it's a tragedy that he's wrecking our capital city big time. And with the Labour government as well to build on that, I think Labour are in the process of destroying everything which we hold dear. So I would like personally to export the lot of them.
Yes, please. And Neil, what did you make of this photo? Because we have Khan saying last night, London's all about diversity. Now, London for the moment is a 53% white city. Now, that's what Khan believes is diversity. I saw one white person, but look at where they are. Look at where they are. I mean, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I wonder how many people would have voted to transform London in the way it has been transformed in recent decades. I bet you, there's a very small number of people throughout the country who actually know that London is not only half white.
Yes, no, I think that would shock a lot of people. But the thing is, Christine, great, I'm all for diversity, right? But diversity surely means that you need to have a photo filled with 50% white people if there are 50% white people living in the city.
Of course, and it's obvious to any right-thinking, normal person. Can't have form on this. Didn't he put out a photograph of sort of something about, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I can't quite remember. I should have looked it up, but the average London family or something, and there was nobody white there at all. I mean, they are the indigenous white population are hanging on, but only by their fingernails, and it's getting a weaker and weaker grip. I mean, way over, I think this figure is right, way over half the people in London were not born in this country. Now, I came to live in London.
Dan's one of them.
Pardon?
Yes, although I always have fights with people about this because I'm a British citizen, born British. My family born in Newcastle and Essex. So actually, I'm no different to Boris Johnson or Kemi Badenoch, a Brit who was born overseas and returned to my motherland.
Of course, Dan, but you're exceptional in so many ways. But I first came to work in London in 1970, the back end of 1970, when I left university. And the London that I knew then is just gone. It is completely different now. It is a different city, and it's almost unrecognizable, which to me is a tragedy. But people like Sadiq Khan and his supporters would say, well, who cares about her? Good riddance. She's just the sort of person we want to get out of our capital city.
And what do you think about this idea of Trump's team considering a travel ban? Because, Christine, it does seem to be forgotten, these extremist links. I mean, Khan's defense of Farrakhan, for example, is utterly shocking, given his position on Jewish people, white people. And you can't just defend your job as a human rights lawyer when you are actually making statements in public defending this guy, which simply weren't true. I mean, how can you describe someone who calls Jewish people bloodsuckers and compliments Adolf Hitler? How can you say they're not anti-Semitic?
Well, you can't. I mean, you just can't. No way. How far back? I mean, in Khan's defense, let's try a bit of devil's advocate. How far back do you go in somebody's life? But the point about Khan, surely, and you will know the detailed answer to this, is that he hasn't changed. He has not changed his view. He has not reformed. He is still just the same Sadiq Khan. He is just now cloaked in the respectability of being the mayor of what used to be one of the great capital cities of the world. And I think it still is, but for how much longer, goodness knows.
Well, I don't think it is anymore, to be honest. You try traveling around London City, it's impossible. You try getting your phone out on the streets of London, and it's impossible. Remember, I've been mugged twice since Khan became mayor. There has been one attempted mugging, which was utterly terrifying because it was two guys completely hooded on the back of a motorcycle. And the problem is your initial instinct is to say, get the hell away. And so I did put my phone away and hoped that they weren't going to come for me, which they didn't. They gave up. But it was under a bridge. I was completely on my own. And the advice, obviously, these days is just hand over whatever they want. Don't intervene if someone is being attacked. And all of this has happened since Khan became mayor. When Boris Johnson was mayor of London, no one had those types of fears. And it is now a lawless city as well, Neil, because you can steal something, you know there's going to be no consequences. You can burgle someone's home, you know there's going to be no consequences.
Yeah, well, effectively, the Metropolitan Police have given up their traditional role of policing crime, haven't they? They're much more interested now in pursuing thought crimes and tweets and posts on social media. The real crimes that people suffer on a daily basis in their homes and on the streets, I'm afraid, go undetected or unpunished, even if you manage to identify the culprit. And our courts as well are so riddled with political correctness that they don't impose condign punishments on people who need to be deterred and others who might follow them in their malpractices. So I'm afraid you're absolutely right. I mean, the knife crime statistics in London are absolutely horrifying. And God knows what it's like to be a school kid in inner London today. And families, I think, must be in absolute despair about what their children are being brought up to learn in the environment, which is more like a battleground than an educational establishment.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what a place to grow up. No wonder so many people end up hardened criminals. But Christine, the problem that I have and why I think I'd like Trump to take action is it is just completely nonsensical for him to constantly describe Trump as racist. Look at his hiring of Vivek Ramaswamy. Look at all of the hires that he made during his first administration. And that is the worst type of far left liberal to me. Someone where any criticism is instantly blamed on identity politics. It's infuriating. Someone can criticize me without me saying, oh, it's because I'm white or it's because I'm gay. Someone can criticize you without you saying it's because you're a woman.
No, absolutely. And let's be honest, Trump is going to be, he already is, and we're what, 30 days from the inauguration or something. He is already a massive breath of fresh air, which we are beginning to feel across the Atlantic. And once he gets his feet properly under the table in the Oval Office, I think it's going to be a really good vibes for this country, amazingly. And my goodness, we need something like that. And I mean, look what Khan did when Trump came to London, whenever it was. He flew that balloon of Trump as a baby in a nappy. I mean, why should Trump want that man anywhere near the country when he is in charge? He'll be the president, in charge of the House of Representatives, Congress, etc. He really is going to have ultimate authority. And there you are. Well done. There is the picture. Now, if I was Trump, I would look at that and said, I'm not having that man in my country. No. So it would be fun. Bring it on. Let's have it.
Ban him. Exactly. Give us a laugh, Donald Trump. Give us a laugh. And it means
we don't want Harry back. We do not want Harry back.
True. Exactly. That's not the deal. Okay. That's not the deal. If we have to keep Khan, you have to keep Harry. Exactly. I think that's a fair trade. But look, breaking right now, growing lefty hysteria and panic over Elon Musk's potential donation to Reform UK to the tune of $20 million. So you will have noticed that the left have absolutely no problems with Bill Gates or BlackRock, not to mention the unions bankrolling Labour to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. But as soon as it's a surging party on the right, they want to change the law. Let me show you the front page of the hard left Guardian today, which reports Keir Starmer must strengthen the rules around political donations to protect the electoral system from foreign interference. Now, this is according to Vijay Rangarajan, the chief executive of the election watchdogs, who said that linking donations to political parties to the UK profits of companies owned by foreigners was one of the urgent changes needed to retain the trust of voters. Well, Neil Hamilton, why the hell has this bloke never given a damn when it's Bill Gates interfering in British politics, when it's BlackRock interfering in British politics, or when it's the unions completely dominating the financing of the Labour Party and influencing their policy positions, which we saw most recently, by the way, with the ludicrous pay rises for train drivers, which has caused a £9 billion black hole in the economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a complete nonsense, isn't it? Elon Musk can easily channel whatever he wants to contribute to a British political party through a British company, and that would be perfectly lawful. Nothing wrong with that at all. When you look at the people who are complaining about this, I mean, they don't really have the interest of Britain at heart at all. They're people who believe that Britain should be abolished effectively as a nation, and they want, through their policy of mass migration, a complete cultural change in this country to destroy what people like you and me think of as naturally what Britain is all about. And when you look at world leaders like Donald Trump, actually he's got much more claim to be regarded as British than Sadiq Khan. And Trump's mother was, of course, born in Scotland, was a fluent Gaelic speaker. So of course he's very attached to this country too, and we should be celebrating these links. Elon Musk is a Commonwealth citizen. He's got a South African passport. So I think the left, of course, just hate it when they are opposed. And the trouble that we've had in this country in recent times is that the so-called parties on the right have just rolled with the punch and not returned fire. And that's going to change now through the fracturing of the electoral system, which Reform UK represents. That's what they're really afraid of. It's that the voice of the British people who've been ignored, despised, condescended to for too long by the political elite now is in danger of losing its hegemony. And bring it on, I say, bring it on big time.
But Christine, isn't this the equivalent of electoral interference? Because this is the establishment, the deep state, as Trump would refer to them, the civil service, as I would refer to them, literally changing the rules because of one man and one party. This has never been something that's on the agenda until Musk started flirting with the idea of donating 20 million to Reform UK and Nigel Farage.
I think it's hilarious, their reaction. It really is. I mean, when Reform was a small party and it was, it was just knocking around and tinkering at the edges, they was just dismissed, as Nigel says something like, first of all they ignored me, then they laughed at me. Well, they're not laughing now. Well, they sure aren't laughing now. And I think they are very worried indeed, because the way things are going, if the main parties aren't careful, and it's their own fault. As Neil said, they have ignored the will of the British people. They have ignored what the voters really want. I mean, look at Labour. They've got, 22% of the voters, and look what they're doing. Within months, they're trying to destroy the economy in the country. So no, I think it's wonderful. Bring it on, Elon Musk. I mean, divert a bit in our direction too would be nice. But no, why not? As Neil says, he can easily do it through a British company. The unions can do it to Labour, etc., etc. So why not? And that would make Reform, they're almost unstoppable now, but that would make Reform, if they had the money behind them, that would professionalise and to build up their grassroots all over the place, which is what they desperately need to do. That would completely transform the situation. And we'll see Farage in number 10.
I know. Well, I predicted it back in June. Neil, it feels like there are so many examples of desperate bids to stop the Reform UK wave. And I wanted to show you something because as a former party leader, maybe you know if this is normal or not, but it was sent to me by a member of the Outspoken family who is on the research board, or one of the people who contribute polling to opinion research. Mm-hmm. And this is their question for, if there was a general election tomorrow, for which party would you vote? And you see there, Conservative, Labour, Lib Dems, Green. If you want to say that you're voting for Reform UK, you first have to click on some other party, and then you get through to the list of parties, including Reform UK. Now, given Reform UK is either number 2 or number 3 in every major poll, that's a disgrace, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's nothing new in this. 10 years ago, when I was the director of the UKIP, the European election campaign, we did a massive amount of work with opinion posters, and we followed the polls in very, very great detail. And most of the big posters didn't identify UKIP either as a choice specifically on the list. You had to do exactly the same thing, and yet that was an election which UKIP actually came out top in. We got 27% of the vote, which was 2 or 3% more than the Tories in second place. And yet, if you went to the opinion polls, they consistently underestimated UKIP's support because of the way in which the polling data was collected. That's why the polls have been so disastrous, I think, in recent times in predicting election results. It is because their polling methods are skewed against insurgent parties. UKIP 10 years ago, Reform UK today. So actually, they don't actually do what it says on their tin, which is telling you the state of opinion in the country. They just tell you what opinions they would like the country to hold, probably, because the polling organisations are part of the metropolitan media elite that are overwhelmingly dominated by PC lefty opinions.
Yes, everything is about holding the status quo. And of course, the mainstream media too. And Christine, I wanted you to have a look at this little interview between Kay Burley.
Hang on, Dan.
Oh, yes,
Dan,
of course, come on.
Before we do that, because otherwise I shall forget.
Yes, please.
I'm very old, I shall forget. I just want to say, somebody sent to me this morning about something different, and it is the most wonderful clip from Yes, Prime Minister, when Sir Humphrey is explaining to Bernard how you can get two absolutely opposite answers. This was about, do you want national service or don't you support national service? And he went through the questions, and it was completely brilliant. And it just shows you that how you ask the questions determines the answer that you get. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, no, I was just going to show you, because I wanted to talk about the mainstream media too. And I wanted to show you this interview with the Reform UK Deputy Leader Richard Tice and Kay Burley on Sly News, where, in my view, she can't even hide her disdain for Reform UK. Watch this.
Equal to the Tories and Labour. No one predicted that. That's because we've got the common sense policies to save this country and get it growing again.
How many MPs have you got?
We've got 5 at the moment. Looking forward to some by-elections, and then we'll have a lot more. And look who's polling.
5 out of how many?
Look who's polling to be the next Prime Minister. Look who's polling. We always look forward, right? That's how we sort of try and progress things. And at the next election, Nigel is currently polling equal first to be the next Prime Minister.
And you can actually hear her laugh, snigger at the end there about the prospect. Now, this is the woman who gasped as if she was having some sort of hot love affair when she saw the exit poll revealing that there was a Labour landslide at the election. So clearly she's not a, how do we put it? She's not an unbiased party in all of this. But I just found it fascinating that now that the poll ratings are so good for Reform UK, the line of attack seems to be, well, you only have 5 MPs. So what does it matter? Why do you matter?
Well, that's an absurd line for her to take, because she's not stupid. There's a lot of things I could say about her, but she's not stupid. She broke COVID rules, etc., but she's not stupid. She knows perfectly well what that 5 MPs represents. She knows perfectly well that that is the tip of a monumental iceberg. This is just sitting there, as Richard Tice said, a few by-elections or the next general election, and she knows perfectly well that is going to double, treble, etc. So she's being very disingenuous. But no, you're right. She can hardly disguise her distaste for Richard Tice anyway, just because of what he represents. And frankly, it's her absolute horror that the people have dared to vote for reform. And it's only the first past the post system that has meant that there are only 5. I mean, the figures speak for themselves.
Then, of course, you have this crackpot organisation, Neil, called Led by Donkeys. And they are...
Well, I certainly agree with that.
Yeah, because that
certainly are donkeys.
Well, yes, but these guys are meant to hold the power to account. So when the Tories were in government, they were, you could argue, quite rightly focused on issues of Tory corruption and that type of thing, sleaze. Now, we've seen all of the example of it within just months of Labour entering office. Lord Ali, Louise Haigh being a convicted fraudster, which was covered up, Rachel Reeves having this completely fake life before she became Chancellor. But Led by Donkeys don't seem to give a damn about this. They are completely obsessed with Nigel Farage and Reform UK, to the point where they've actually spent their Christmas money, look at this, Neil, at launching an electronic billboard in Clacton which reveals Nigel Farage's earnings since becoming an MP. Now, I take an American approach to this, by the way. If GB News wants to pay Nigel Farage that amount of money and they believe it's worth it to them commercially doing so, who cares? Who cares? But it's just odd, isn't it? The fact that there's so much corruption going on in our current government, but the obsession of the left remains Farage.
Well, it just goes to show, doesn't it, that they're so out of touch. They have no idea what motivates ordinary people who are not in their metropolitan elite loop. The idea that anybody in Clacton is going to be turned off voting for Nigel just because he earns a lot of money from GB News or wherever is just utterly preposterous. What we should be more concerned about is the people who are leeching off the state, earning vast sums of money, not just for doing nothing, but in many cases actively doing things that harm our country. And they know that parties like Reform are a grave threat to their incomes and their way of life. These people, as I said earlier on, all part of the same metropolitan elite with the same mindset. No matter how they vote, even if they vote for the Tories, then they're still, nevertheless, that's part of the Tories' problem, of course, is that they've got too many people of that ilk inside their party, which is why they failed as a government in the last 14 years, and they're failing now as an opposition. But I mean, the way in which the internet has developed, I think, has posed great dangers to free speech, because of so-called fact checkers are not fact checkers at all, because they're all propagandists for a particular left-wing point of view. Of course, Elon Musk completely bust that model when he bought Twitter, now X, and sacked 80% of the staff, most of whom were engaged in the acts of censorship, which the internet was created to get around. So the idea that these people are going to succeed in their ambitions through the kind of stratagems that they're employing is absurd, and it just goes to show how totally out of touch with reality they are. And that's why they will be slipped into the dustbin of history, in my view, because the public at large are just not going to put up with this for very much longer.
No, but goodness me, they're going to try. And such a good point, by the way, about X, because the thing about X is the way that X fact checks is with something called community notes, which is completely democratized. I've had community notes on my posts in the past. Don't always like it, but so has Elon Musk, and he runs the platform. Whereas organizations like Full Fact, which are always funded by the left, funded by big tech, funded by the mainstream media, are completely crooked. And again, I know that from personal experience. But it's interesting, Neil, that you talk about the failure of the Conservative Party in opposition, because I just wanted to do a little compare and contrast here. I was at the launch of the Heartland Institute earlier in the week, where Nigel Farage gave the keynote address and really hemmed in on the issue of net zero, which he thinks is going to be the new Brexit. But this was a speech delivered completely off the cuff, no notes. He had the room, which included people like, Liz Truss, Anne Widdecombe, former government ministers, Lady Colin Campbell. He had the room in the palm of his hands. Contrast that with Kemi Badenoch, who I think has been so disappointing in her first weeks as leader of the opposition, who tried to go a little Farage with a social media video this week, but I don't think it worked. But look, both of you watch these and then we'll discuss off the back.
But those of us that thought differently about these things were condemned, mocked, derided. Whilst out of the country, a different conversation was happening. Believe me, net zero is the next Brexit. Net zero is the next big political issue. It is fundamentally going to change British policy.
4 years ago, I warned that Labour will always take the knee. Now we see what that means for our country. Labour cannot negotiate. They get taken for a ride because they give things away for free, hoping that the other side will be nice to them in exchange. They put our national security at risk.
And Christine, I really liked the taking the knee line. I thought that was clever. That was well thought through. But the delivery, I mean, I'm so uninspired. And you compare it to Farage and you think, this is only heading in one direction, right?
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we're not members of the Tory party, so we didn't have a vote. And when it came down to Jenrick versus Kemi, Neil said it's got to be Jenrick because he'll take us out of the ECHR, etc. And he's got all the right ideas. I thought he is too boring, pale, male, white, stale, etc. And I actually didn't think he had much charisma. I don't think either of them have got the charisma. But I have been so disappointed by Kemi that, I mean, I'm glad I didn't vote for her. I couldn't vote for her, but I just feel I possibly would have done. But no, I think she's been completely hopeless. And alongside her, and of course Starmer is so wooden, Nigel Farage just shines because you can feel it. It comes from the heart. It comes from the soul. He doesn't need notes. He needs nothing like that. And of course, he is 156% right about net zero. And it's coming to a town near you, or it's coming to a field near you. And sooner or later, virtually everybody in the country is going to be affected by this, either through their bills, or they're going to have a great big solar park on their doorstep, or they're going to have pylons surrounding them. You're going to be all right if you live in Islington, little bubble in the middle of London. But for vast swathes of the country, net zero is going to devastate people's way of life, and it's going to cost them a fortune. If I thought that net zero would save the planet, if I thought that the science was correct, then I would feel differently about it. But it isn't. The science is not correct. It is not going to save the planet. And everybody's going to be paying through the nose, except for the MPs, of course, because the taxpayer pays for their energy bills.
Well, indeed. And I would also argue, though, Neil, that Kemi Badenoch isn't going to save your former party.
No, of course she's not. The clue to why she's proving to be so useless is that her explicit pitch in her election campaign for the leadership was that she wanted to unite the party. Well, considering that a third of the parliamentary party ought to be in Reform UK and most of the rest should be in the Lib Dems, what chance is there of uniting the party around the kind of radical policies which the Tory party itself needs to survive? That's why it's institutionally incapable of taking advantage of the massive opportunities that appalling government offers them. And that's why the mainstream parties are still part of a kind of consensus, even though there are superficial differences between them. In practice, on all the major issues, they're united. I mean, it was Theresa May who signed up to the net zero 2050 legal obligation, doubled down upon by Boris Johnson. It's all the complete crackpot that we've now got, as our energy secretary is doing, is building upon the legislative foundations that the Tories laid for him. And until Kemi Badenoch says that we were an overwhelming number of things that we did in the 14 years when we were in office, and now we're going to forge out in a different direction to recognise the reality in issues like net zero. I totally agree with Farage, by the way, when he says this is the new Brexit. I mean, I've been saying this for quite a long time because I've been fighting these battles for a quarter of a century on what now we call net zero. The whole thing is nonsense. It's the biggest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich that any of us have seen in our lifetimes. And, billions of pounds every year are the grifters and chancers and scammers because the government forces the taxpayer and the electricity consumer to pay for things that they have no say in whether they want or not. And bring it on, I say, for Reform UK to zero in on net zero, on nut zero, as you call it.
Nut zero, exactly. Nut zero is going to bankrupt us, and it's another reason why we do need a revolution, actually, and a smashing of the uni party. I really, really do believe that.
Yeah.
Breaking right now, the BBC, the British bashing corporation, is coming under increased pressure to play the biggest surprise contender for the Christmas #1 of the year. Now, this is Starmer and the Grammy Hammers, who have released quite a brilliant song called It's Freezing This Christmas, a direct response to the fact that the winter fuel allowance has been removed for the elderly this year. Now, it's stormed to the top of the download charts, and Keir Starmer was even asked about it at PMQs this week.
Final question, Dr. Lucan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, as it's Christmas, will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating Chris Middleton, who wrote a charity song to support Age UK, which has already raised £10,000. What's even better is it's likely to beat the leader of the Lib Dems and his single to #1 this year, proving yet again that the Lib Dems can't win. Something I hope we can both agree on.
I'm not going to adjudicate between the contending singles for the top of the charts, but I will end, Mr. Speaker, this is the last question, I think, by just repeating a happy Christmas and a peaceful New Year to everyone across the House.
But surely, Christine Hamilton, the BBC should be playing this song, because do you remember when Margaret Thatcher died and they still played an excerpt of Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, which had gone to #2 in the charts that week?
No, of course, there's no question about it. The BBC must play it unless they want to be shown up for the Bias Broadcasting Corporation, as you call them, Buggers Broadcasting Corporation. No, Buggers Broadcasting Communism. Sorry, that's what I call them. I'm forgetting what I call them. Unless they're going to be shown up for what they are. Of course they have to. I mean, you know, this song has, by public demand, soared to the top of the chart. Of course, if it was Mariah Carey or Bob Hope or whatever the other one is, White Christmas or something, it would be played constantly. So, I mean, they have got to. And if they don't, absolute shame on them. And it's just one more nail in their coffin, one more nail. I mean, these are the people who have voted for this song to get to the top are the people who are forced to pay the license fee. So come on, play fair, play the song. But I loved Starmer's response. He didn't know what to say except Happy Christmas.
But they're not going to play the song, are they, Neil? They're not going to play the song. I can guarantee you right now they are not going to play the song.
No, of course not. In a sense, of course, it doesn't matter because these legacy media platforms are a thing of the past. I mean, who listens to them or watches them anymore? It's only if you are sort of half brain dead and stuck in front of a television that you're watching this stuff. I mean, I never, ever watch the BBC News or any of the programs like Question Time. They're so boring, so predictable, and they don't actually tell you what the real news is. And since social media has developed, of course, they are a very declining force and very rapidly. Sadly, we're still obliged to pay for broadcasting corporations through the license fee. That surely can't survive for that much longer either. And that's one of the next big battles I'm sure that reform will espouse, is freeing us from the television tax, and not for too long.
But the thing is, Neil, when you actually look at the BBC, they have no problem on a constant basis on Have I Got News for You, pillorying the Conservative Party. Kemi Badenoch has revealed she rarely has time for lunch and would rather a steak over a sandwich. She likes her steaks like her victories at PMQs. Very rare. So they have no problem doing that, do they?
No, exactly right. And going back to net zero, of course, the BBC is now quite explicitly a propaganda platform for global warming alarmists. You won't get any contrary view at all. And Paul Homewood, in his website, not a lot of people know that, .com, takes apart the coverage on the BBC almost on a daily basis and showing how they're not just biased, but actually telling packs of lies to misinform people. If we need real fact checkers, it's on things that are going out on the BBC. But it's a fool's errand, really, to think you can ever change anything with a publicly funded broadcaster like the BBC, because anything which is publicly funded is going to be taken over by people of a left-wing mindset. That's true of the whole gamut of public life, actually, that unless something is explicitly right-wing, it's going to be taken over by the left in due course. Almost ineluctable nature. Of course, the BBC is feeling in a very precarious position because as their ratings go through the floor, compared with other platforms, and not least podcasts, then you're going to find that the public is going to get fed up eventually of paying for something they simply don't use or consume.
Keir Starmer's had a go, by the way. He's tried to compete by releasing the number 10 Downing Street Christmas card. Shall we have a little watch together, see what we think?
1, 2, 3.
Oh, goodness me. I'm not inspired by that countdown, which had to be one of the worst Christmas moments of the year, Christine Hamilton.
No, well, I mean, I'm almost speechless. I hadn't seen that before. And that the countdown is reminiscent of his countdown for the Christmas lights going on outside Downing Street. It was the most uninspiring countdown imaginable. Is that really the Downing Street Christmas card?
It is. They have tried to play, Christine, on the 3, 2, 1. So they're saying 3, 2, 1, Happy Christmas from Downing Street. But I just feel it's a bit like, you can't make a joke about us laughing at the Prime Minister. It's like how sometimes now he tries to make jokes about the fact that he always talks about his father, that he didn't actually like being a toolmaker. It's not funny if you make the joke because you don't get the joke.
It is unbelievable. I mean, we were all pretty horrified when Labour was elected. Obviously, we could see it coming. But the speed with which this government has unravelled one thing after another. And I mean, the pathetic little Christmas card that you've just shown and the pathetic switching on of the lights, etc., is just, you know, the latest in a long line of examples, whether it's all Starmer's globe-trotting. I mean, he spent more time in the air than he has in this country since he was elected, roughly speaking. And all the free suits and the glasses and goodness knows what. And then Rachel Reeves, etc., and the one who was convicted of fraud.
Louise Hay. Exactly.
Right.
Which you didn't know about. Do you know one other interesting thing about this video, though? The wife, Lady V. There she is, Neil, making another appearance. So clearly he is trying to reassure us he's a happy family man, right?
Is that their child between them?
Well, to be honest, we've never seen the children, so it could be Christine.
And why have...
God.
What I want to know is, were all those Christmas presents bought by Harry? Christmas presents round the tree.
Yes, indeed. Okay.
Why hasn't...
Sorry, Christine.
Well, we know perfectly well, because she was given them by Lord Ali, that Lady Victoria has got some fabulous bright red Christmas-coloured dresses. Why isn't she wearing one of those? She looks as though she's going to a funeral or a memorial service. It's Christmas.
Yeah. Well, but Lord Ali was Victoria's secret for quite a long time, wasn't he? Was that Rachel Reeves I saw in the background dressed as Santa, just coming down the chimney, not in Liverpool's present, to steal them and take them away?
Yes, of course. Very
You've got
good.
to laugh. I mean, it is wonderful. It's the gift that goes on giving. You just think, what on earth is going to happen tomorrow? What are we going to discover?
It's just a shame that at the same time they're riding our country into the ground. But there you go. It's Christmas time. Let's try and have a positive message. Look, Christine and Neil Hamilton, stand by, because overnight there has been a bloodbath at GB News. We'll reveal what's going on in just 1 minute. But first, with the holidays creeping up faster now, goodness, it's less than a week, right, than your aunt's fruitcake recipe, I've got something way better to share with you. If you want to look sharp for all those festive gatherings and maybe finally win that Best Groomed at the Family Dinner Award, check out the latest masterpiece from Manscaped, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. Trust me, this is like Rudolph for your face, guiding you to a smooth, irritation-free shave. So let's dive into the goods. The Chairman Pro is armed with not one, but two interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. Think of them as your grooming superheroes. The skin-safe 4-blade foil for when you want that baby bottom smooth, and the skin-safe stubble trimmer for when you want to keep some stubble but clean it up a bit. Both keep you looking sharp while minimizing razor burn and irritation, because nobody wants to show up to the holiday party, right, looking like they lost a fight with a Christmas tree. But wait, there's more. The Chairman Pro has Flex Adjust technology, which is basically like the holiday miracle of shaving. It's sort of like Santa's elves made it just for you. The blades and pivoting head adjust to every curve of your face and is gentle on the neck area as if they had the gift of foresight. So go ahead, kiss that awkward jawline patch goodbye. No more pretending it doesn't exist while you hope nobody notices under the mistletoe. And if you want even more precision, on the right side of the bracket, there's a precision lock. When you lock it, the blade head sits firm so you can achieve a more precise shave. And here's something that's going to make your grooming routine even easier. The Chairman Pro is waterproof. So yep, you can use it right in the shower. And the waterproof feature doesn't just make shaving easier, it also simplifies cleanup too. Just a quick rinse under the sink and you're all set. The Chairman Pro isn't just for daily shaves either, it's powerful enough to tackle up to 5-day growth, making it perfect whether you're shaving every day or just tidying up after a few days. And with up to 75 minutes of runtime on a single charge, you'll have plenty of juice to go from Santa's beard to smooth as a snow angel. See what I did there? It even has a travel lock to make sure it doesn't accidentally turn on in your bag, and an LED spotlight to help you see every detail, ensuring nothing gets missed. So get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. I use this product. Trust me, it has everything you need to keep your face looking and feeling its best, all in one box. So head on over to manscaped.com and join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using the code Outspoken for free shipping and 20% off. That's www.manscaped.com. Use the coupon code Outspoken and you'll get 20% off your entire order and free shipping. But now, back to the show. Breaking right now, a Christmas bloodbath at GB News. This all happened when the presenters had gone off for their Christmas holidays, had announced that they would be returning in the new year in just a couple of weeks, until the bosses decided to drag a few unfortunate souls back to the office and say, "Don't enjoy your festive season, you're fired." Mark Dolan announced the news on X, writing, "GB News have made the decision to permanently relieve me of my duties at the channel. I will speak publicly about this in due course." And Mark Dolan wasn't the only casualty. Isabel Webster, Eamon Holmes' longtime co-host on The Breakfast Show, was also brutally sacked. Jacob Rees-Mogg had his hours on the channel cut in half. So what is going on? What is this about? Is it to save money? Is it to get rid of presenters who challenge the narrative? Or is there something else afoot? And the other question is, and look, I'm not someone that ever likes to dance on someone's grave. Absolutely not. And I'll talk about my personal experience with Mark Dolan in just a moment. But it's only fair of me to present both sides of the picture. And there are some people saying, well, this is what happens when you give in to management, when you become their bitch, when you are prepared to throw your colleagues under the bus. Lawrence Fox posted on X, sarcastically, of course, it was Lawrence Fox. GB News called me up today and said they wanted me back on a contract of £30 million a show, with a helicopter, my own butler, personal trainer, 38 speechwriters and chef. I told them that my price was free speech and not stabbing your colleagues in the back. They declined. Our superstar panelist, Lilani Dowding, added of Mark Dolan, "He fed the alligator and he was still eaten. Hope it was all worth it. I won't forget his statement about you and Dan. He was pretty fast off the bat with that." And a lot of reaction as well from the GB News audience. Steve Shakespeare wrote, "I don't like to see anyone lose their job, but I bet you wish you'd spoken up for Dan Wootton now." And Debbie Eaton added, well, it turns out throwing your former colleagues under the bus in a struggle session to save your own ass backfired on you. Good. Similar from Mrs. Reality Undercover, who wrote, GB News isn't living up to its claim to be the home of free speech. So many of the good ones have gone now. I will be sorry to see you go, Mark, Calvin, Dan, Mark Stein, Alex Phillips, Neil Oliver, Andrew Doyle, sorry. No one wants Andrew Neil back. And they went on to say, I know Neil is on the YouTube channel, but it's not the same. And Andrew appears to have left to do other things, but the channel is losing appeal for viewers who were there from day one. Liam Halligan gone, Colin Brazier gone, Ray Addison gone. Will we ever see John Cleese on GB News again? I think I know the answer to that. Boris Johnson's show never got off the ground either. And indeed, a member of the Outspoken audience put together a list of all of the folk who have been unceremoniously dumped from GB News, and it is quite something, the talent train. Mark Stein, Kirsty Gallagher, Andrew Neil, Colin Brazier, Alex Phillips, Simon McCoy, Darren McCaffrey, Anaya Floran-Aman, Gito Harry, Daisy McAndrew, Dominic Frisby, Rachel Sweeney, Rosie Wright, Mercy Moroki, Dahana Davidson, Becca Hudson, Isabel Oakeshott, Paul Hawkins, Calvin Robinson, Lawrence Fox, Rhiannon Jones, Mark Longhurst, Arlene Phillips, Pip Thompson, Dan Wootton, Liam Halligan, Ray Addison, Polly Middlehurst, Albion Ancona, Andrew Doyle, Mark Dolan, Isabel Webster. Goodness me, it's a dangerous place to work. Christina Neil Hamilton with me now. Now, look, I know you guys love Mark Dolan. I completely understand that. And you know my history with Mark Dolan is an interesting one because I got him his job on the channel. And he was nice enough to message me before this news became public yesterday. However, Christine, when I was suspended in those circumstances, which a lot of people say are ridiculous, given that I laughed at a joke that someone made, maybe a bit of a saucy joke, but after the watershed at 9 p.m. at night, he was very, very quick to condemn that and immediately take the job. And the problem is once you lose the respect of your audience, the respect of your viewers, it's very difficult to get it back.
Well, I can't remember who said it, but you read out somebody's comment on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. Sorry, Elon, it's Twitter. That if you feed the alligator, eventually it's going to bite you. But the list of names you've read out is astonishing. I had forgotten about some of them. But I mean, for a channel to lose one or two good presenters might be regarded as whatever the Oscar Wilde quote is, careless. No, it's not Oscar Wilde, but, but to lose however many, 15, 16, 17, I mean, it's bonkers. I mean, to lose Liam Halligan, for example, one of the best economic brains in the broadcasting world, just to let him go is madness. And I don't know what's going on. I know they're always trying to save money. For example, I used to do Nana's show every Sunday afternoon, and then they suddenly turned around and said, we're not going to pay your travel anymore. Well, it's not a huge amount of money, but I just thought, sod it, it's a 200-mile round journey for me, and I can't be bothered anymore. I'm not going to do it. And they wanted me to do 3 hours instead of 2 hours, and no travel. So, I mean, I don't do it anymore. I mean, I'm not a great big loss, but I think it's this penny pinching, etc. And whether they want compliant people, I don't know, but to lose you, to lose Mark, and Colin Brazier, you mentioned right early on. I used to do Colin's show 2 or 3 years ago, and I was very happy doing that once a week. And then suddenly, bang, he's gone. And Mark Longhurst has gone. I don't know what's going on. It's beyond me. And Andrew Doyle, I think he's gone, but I think his concern is more to do, or as much to do, with the state of the country as the state of GB News. And he's gone, and he's going to line up with Graham Linehan, isn't he, over in America?
Yes. And they have made clear on Andrew Doyle that he will continue as a contributor to the channel. Now, look, Neil, one of the things that I guess people have raised as maybe being problematic about Mark Dolan is whether he actually sometimes believed, if he was really passionate about the issues that he was talking about on GB News. And I just want to show you a post from 2016 that went public last night. And it was Jonathan Norris, who says he has friends in the comedy circuit who found it. And this was a post from Mark Dolan on the 7th of June 2016, saying, like everyone, I'm a little torn on the referendum, but it's quite clear all the freaks and nutters are for Brexit. Hashtag Farage, hashtag Bojo, hashtag IDS, hashtag Gove. So some suggested, Neil, that maybe Mark was putting on what he thought he had to say to be on GB News.
Well, I'm feeling insulted that I wasn't on that list. What did I do wrong? Look, I've known Mark a very long time. We met him nearly 20 years ago first, when he came on a show that we did at the Edinburgh Festival. And he's been good to us, and we've been regulars on his show on TV News. So I'm not going to believe personal criticisms of Mark, whom I like, and I'm very sympathetic towards in his current predicament. I mean, I've been involved in the media for a very long time too, and suddenly I'm afraid, if you work for a corporation as opposed to doing, what you're now doing, Dan, where you're master in your own house.
And that is the future. That is the future.
Yeah.
But look, I completely agree. It's a horrible thing to happen to someone a week before Christmas. Mark had announced that he was going to be returning to the show on the 11th of January, called into the office and told never come back again. And as I say, this is someone who had been a bitch for the channel, who had done anything that he was told to do, even if it was throwing his colleagues under the bus. Look, I want to bring on our mutual friend, Lady Colin Campbell, who is here for the after show today. But Lady C, I really wanted to get your view on this because GB News seems to be shedding talent and promoting very cheap, very pliable people into the top jobs now. But what do you make of this decision for them to axe Mark Dolan, Isabel Webster, and also cut back Jacob Rees-Mogg's days?
Well, I'm astonished because I appeared on Mark's show quite a few times. And, he was always very tame. He never, ever sort of took chances the way you did, Dan. I mean, he was, sort of, you could see that he had the rod in his back where they were concerned. And I think it's extraordinarily poor form to dismiss somebody the week before Christmas, especially having led him to believe that he was going to be on in January. And they seem to be working through everybody of note. I'm wondering if it's that they don't have the money to sustain people who are of quality, and they're going to end up with flotsam and jetsam who will be happy to go on for little or nothing, and maybe even nothing. And that's just my take on it.
Well, I mean, that is literally happening. Literally happening. They've cancelled lots of contracts, and the guests do tend to now go on for nothing. And so what that means is you get very young, very fame-hungry, very inexperienced people. And, for example, the person who's replacing Mark Dolan used to be the producer on my show. So it is interesting. Certainly, I think a lot of this does feel like it's cost motivated, put it that way.
Who is replacing Mark?
Ben Leo.
Oh, Ben.
Yeah, who was my producer actually. So it's quite surprising,
well,
Christine,
Ben
isn't it?
Bright. I mean, he's bright. He's bright and he's capable. But I mean, good luck to Ben. But I mean, I don't think Mark should have been shoved out the way he was, no matter what.
Yeah, it's certainly not.
Dan,
yes,
Dan, you're talking about cost. I didn't know until you mentioned it earlier that Jacob Rees-Mogg has had his hours cut. So presumably he's now doing 2 days a week instead of 4.
Yes,
as I
that's
understood it, for 4 hours a week, 4 hours, 4, not a day, a week, he was getting £350,000. He had to declare it in the Register of Members' Interests. Now, that is insane money for anybody. And that couldn't continue. Why didn't they, if they wanted to keep Jacob at all, why didn't they just say, please, will you do it for less?
Which I'm sure he would have done.
I'm sure he would have done. He doesn't need the money. I don't
I'm
know.
sure he would have done it if you took 3-5 off the front of the figure. He would have done it for that, wouldn't he? But because he wanted the platform. I mean, he is going to be replaced for the 2 days that are going to be axed by Matt Goodwin, I think. So, I mean, I think he is a catch for GB News. I think he's an excellent broadcaster. I mean, I like Ben Leo as well. And yes, of course, he is young and inexperienced, but I think that he's developed as an engaging presenter. And so I'm not against changes of that kind. They're inevitable in this kind of world. And I do agree with Lady C and with you, Dan, that it was almost sadistic to axe people in the week before Christmas in the way that has happened. I do think that is unacceptable and isn't going to stand them in good stead in the longer term, because if you get a reputation for that kind of unnecessarily ruthless behavior, then people are going to be wary about committing themselves to you as an employer.
Well, look, all I will say is that, my God, there is life after GB News. The whole media is changing. I have never been happier. I have never been more professionally fulfilled than what I am doing now, because I no longer have a billionaire whispering in my ear, metaphorically. I no longer have the off-communist saying, you've got to have this horrible lefty on to say something completely ludicrous just so we can do some faux balance. And I no longer have executives who edit what I say, or at least try to edit what I say. This is the future of media. It genuinely is. Look at what happened in America at the most recent election, where it was the independent voices that completely changed the game. Long form interviews. Only talk about advertisers who you actually believe in and are actually passionate about. And look at you guys. Christine now hosting her own interview show on a new media platform. Lady Colin Campbell, a YouTube sensation who is watched by tens of millions of people a month. The game is changing. So my message to Mark Dolan and Isabel Webster is, this is an opportunity. Take it, embrace it, be your authentic self. Don't try and get back into the mainstream media, because they are dying. You've just been handed a golden ticket. It's hard work, but come and join the party.
Yeah. Do
you agree,
well,
Lady
that's
C?
absolutely right. Yes.
As a YouTube sensation, Lady C, do you agree?
Well, I think Tina Brown has said it all and done it. Tina really is the most eminent editor of all. She did Tatler, she revived Tatler, she revived Vanity Fair, she revived the New York magazine, I think it was the New Yorker, and she founded the Daily Beast, and now she's gone on Substack.
Yes.
So, I mean, if Tina Brown, who is covered in glory in terms of being an editor of and not only was she a successful editor, she's the one who made several of those publications into the successes that they became. And if she's gone down this route, there's a reason for it. And I think that this is the future. We on social media are not regulated, and we are not, at least so far, and hopefully never, we are not curtailed the way the mainstream media curtail their employees. Dan, I mean, you had times when you were at GB News where they were breathing down your earpiece, telling you, oh, no, don't do that, and shut them up and whatever. And you didn't, to your credit. You didn't.
Exactly. Got me in trouble, didn't it? Got me in trouble. But no, I didn't, and I'm proud that I didn't. And actually, I think the channel has become very sanitized in a lot of ways. I think it is the mainstream media. I don't want to be the mainstream media. I don't trust the mainstream media. So indeed, there are opportunities here. But fascinating insight. And Lady Colin Campbell, don't go anywhere because we're actually up on Substack for the Uncancelled After Show in just a couple of minutes' time.
Dan, can I just steal 2 seconds?
Please.
You kindly mentioned that I'm doing interviews for a new channel, and the latest interview that's just gone up is with, would you guess, Lady C, and it's only been up for about 48 hours, I think. It's already.
So where can we watch? Where can we watch?
It's on 1vsp.com. 1vsp.com, or go to my Twitter, Lady C's Twitter, or 1vsp.com Twitter, and you'll find it there. And it's quite long because she does talk quite a lot, don't you, Lady C? But you've got such an interesting story to tell, and we went through the whole thing, and it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Can I say that Christine was a very naughty interviewer? She tried to get me to say things that really she was trying to cross the line. She was a wicked girl, but I love her.
I really want to watch now. Okay, good stuff. But just
I only married her because she was a wicked girl.
She's my Christmas pudding. But look, just make sure you go to 1vsp.com after you've watched the after show with myself and Lady Colin Campbell.
Absolutely.
But Neil and Christine Hamilton, absolute joy to have you. Thank you for all of your support of Outspoken all year long. Merry Christmas, and I can't wait to see you in 2025.
Thank you very much indeed, Dan, and happy Christmas to all your viewers, and in particular to you, Dan, and to Lady C.
Thank you so much, guys.
You too, both of you.
And of course, Lady C isn't going anywhere because we have a big after show ahead. Bombshell new reports on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's new arrangement. Prince Andrew in exile. And William and Catherine have missed today's Christmas lunch. What's going on? We're going to do it all on Substack. As Lady C was just saying, it's where Tina Brown now resides. It's where Jacob Rees-Mogg now resides. It's where Anne Widdecombe now resides. It's where Barry Weiss resides. It's where Matt Goodwin resides. It's where Konstantin Kisin resides. Honestly, Substack is the place to be. It is the future of the media. My address, www.outspoken.live. You can sign up completely for free, but if you do want to watch the after show where you get half an hour of extra content every single weekday, just sign up to a monthly paid membership from £5 plus VAT if you're in the UK per month. And that support allows me to continue making this independent news show. And for all of the reasons that we just discussed about GB News, that couldn't be more important. We are back tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. Most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you. But I will see you on the after show with Lady Colin Campbell on Substack in just a couple of minutes' time.